Today's been a good day. Real good day. So I got both sides cut out. Dropped them in muriatic acid outside, of course, because I don't want to wreck anything inside. Set them in there for probably about an hour. Went out and they were, mill scale was completely gone. Hit them with a Brillo pad. Washed them down with water. Hit them with this thing. Cleaned them, dried them, wiped them down with acetone. Okay. And then came after them with self-etching primer. That primer burns through and it is minimal. I mean, you can see the soot here. You can see the soot. But it cooks pretty good. It doesn't give a whole hell of a lot of problems when welding. Anyway, established two shiny edges and tacked this whole guy on. Ground off all the paint on this side, on the edge of here and there. Went in a little ways, whatever, 3/16 of an inch. And remembered at the last minute to weld my bump stop mounts or nuts so that I could get in there. But yeah, it's going very, very, very well. Turning out spectacular. The nice thing about doing two of these at a time is you guarantee that your frame with your placement, this butts up against that side, butts up against the inside. You guarantee your frame placement. So this has been going very, very well. Well, taking a break from that and working on that, and I do have the CAD drawing now for this circle. I made that up, kind of retraining myself on AutoCAD. But basically, once I get this, I can make the adapter to the transmission, which will be the front pump housing of the 46RE or A518. I need to make a flex plate to hold the torque converter. But today, decided to start taking apart the transmission. And that went fine, The thing is, when you jump into an automatic, the certain thing is, if you don't do them all the time, take a piece off, take a picture of it, holding it above where you took it off, and just keep walking through the process. This is the first 46RE that I've taken apart. 700R4, 350s I have, triple 350s and 700R4s. The only thing is, it took a lot of pictures, but then at some point in time, I'm working on this little bench because I'm kind of running out of space. But anyway, working on this little bench, just pulling it off piece by piece by piece, kind of kitting it and getting it grouped here so I can get it stored. Got the body of it in the solvent tank right now, trying to get a lot of the crap off of it. But then, as I'm cleaning up, I find one little spring. About that long, about 3/8 of an inch in diameter. And I threw it in, I threw it in this box. I'm not going to look for it or pull it out. Everything's greasy at this point. But those are the kinds of things that really drive me bonkers. I know what stage I was in when I found it and all that kind of thing, but now I got to go do an exploded view, which I would have anyway for reassembly. But I hate when that happens. Anyway, still working with the gentleman on the suspension. Lots of questions. As it turns out, the frame dimensions, the frame dimensions that he had were slightly different in the terms of the frame width. He had a Chrysler frame that he could find a dimension drawing on. Although I've provided him a series of dimensions, the one thing is that we needed to allow for the 3/16 plate, of course, which isn't that big of a deal. But as it turns out, he's trying to draft the whole frame. So be it. No big deal to me. But It's just taking a little extra time. But I'm not here to speed them up. I'm here to do it right. The guy's a drafter. He sends his stuff off for for kitting, like control arms or trailing arms, that kind of stuff, and then he builds the cross members and some of the mounts for the hangers for the 4-link. So we're doing a little bit of a new design because I wanted that 4-link to be integrated, not kind of a bolt-on or tack-on look. So I want one link mounted to the frame on either side that wraps around and grabs the upper control arms as well as the lower control arm, so it looks more factory than two pieces and drilling holes in a frame and bolting it in and then tack welding it on, or other crazy stuff that looks like kits. Needless to say, because he does the drafting and he submits them, I have that flexibility, so he can draft it up as long as I give him the radiuses and everything. So it's taking a little more time than would be, say, doing a 55 Ford truck or something like that. That's more common, and a lot of that information is commonly available. At this point, anyway, kind of got a mess of things going on, but drafting that up, taking that will mount to the front pump on the transmission, pretty standard fare. Cut the bell housing off, use the front pump. I'm going to dimension that out, get the bolt pattern for the front pump and the clocking. Marked everything when I took it out, so I make sure that I do have the clocking correct, that the transmission's sitting not upside down in the tunnel. But anyway, going really well. And not a whole lot to offer in terms of information other than the status of where I'm going today. Have a good one. Hi, all. Well, today's the day that we got a couple of snow days. We're just buried here in North Dakota. So what I wanted to show you, so right now, this smaller in ring is the 700R, 46RE transmission front pump. This is the Hemi bell housing. Okay. Down here, building a adapter because I got to carry that flex plate. And that'll go on this ring here. And because the Hemi is centric to the outside of the flange, not the interior side, I need to make a spacer / centering ring for the crankshaft. In this case, it'll push the flywheel out a 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch thick, minus a 1/4 inch for that relief. Okay. Then over here, I started the logic on marrying the transmission. Everything in blue is the transmission pump surface to the LA block or the original bell housing. This is the crank flange on the Hemi, and at this point I'm trying to line everything up to it. So I started taking measurements and putting them in here, and then eventually I'll get this done where this drawing up here, a lot of guys hate the fact that I put everything on one drawing, but I multitask. But the mounting surface to this, to the other side of the adapter, mounting surface to the block, needs to be whatever it's going to wind up being. And then I have to have the relief for the torque converter, make sure I don't have any interference with the torque converter, the pump bolts, all those kinds of things. And at the same time getting it to within about 1/8 of an inch of the flex plate so that the torque converter can expand, of course. But so I'm started here. I'm in the process of rebuilding the transmission still, and I just got parts. You can see them on the bench right there. But I have to replace these 3 drums. Well, these 2 drums in that. Can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head in the video. So those just came in. So in the meantime, what I'm doing is I'm tapping the holes, excuse me, to a 1/2 of an inch in the crank. These were 7/16 bolts. The hole size is just under 29-30 seconds. I don't remember what the actual size is for a 1/2 inch drill. But so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 tapped. And you can buy an alignment jig, but basically I use the drill press, through a 1/2 inch hole in here, clean it up on the interior side and the exterior side. I get my tap started in the hole. Where am I at here? I get my tap started in the hole, just so I cut the first thread. Take a vice grip, clamp to the flange on the inside, clamp or to the keep it straight pipe on the outside and the inside, and that'll carry, you know, I'm spanning whatever this is, 3 inches across the crank, so that'll carry my and guide my tap down nice and straight. It's worked beautiful. It's working just beautiful. So almost finished with this. Gonna go over and start to work on that over there, and then start to figure out what the next phases are here. So eventually I expect a torque converter flex plate to be coming in the mail probably tomorrow, actually. And when that comes in, then I can start mocking up here. Now I don't have my spacer made for centering, but I can start mocking up to dimension out, and then whatever the thickness of that spacer is, remember it was 1/4 of an inch at this point in the drawing, whatever that spacer is, I can add or subtract to my advantage as I'm building the adapter for the engine. So that's where we are today. Covered a lot of things and covered them quick. Maybe a little confusing, but things will materialize in the future here. Hello again. So here we're looking at the factory exhaust manifolds. And on this, I just started. There we go. I got the interior side done. On this, you can see the tops, and you can see how I narrowed up the valve guide area. So now we got a nice shiny port flowing through and through. So that's the project for today. When I get the headers and the gaskets, I can just take a little bit of material off of here to port match them. So these are about a 32nd larger than these right now. That's about it, if even that. So just cleaning them up at this point, and then more later. Good morning. Something's different. Oh, it's got a starter on it. Pretty neat. Pretty excited. So that's the old starter head, You can see some of the machining. I turned it on a lathe on a 4-jaw, offset the lathe center to get to the hole in the to line it up with the hole in the pan in the bell, but also to turn it down so that it would fit. So I progressively moved it inward. Get this light on it here, and you can see the half moon around there, where the bottom of the drive is in contact with the circle, the hole in the bell housing. The bottom of the drive, I got closer and closer and closer until I got my registration for about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a skosh less, for the tooth interference, or the gap, if you will, from the ring gear to the tooth, which is pretty standard. Then I machined out that half moon, welded it to the starter head to register it to find the location. That's 1/4 inch aluminum 6061. Then I built another piece of aluminum that was the shape of the bell housing hole with the alignment holes. It was the outside shape of the bell housing, and then ended about, there's the weld, there's the finish of the weld, and then this was the start of the starter head, the factory Dodge starter head. So then I had to cut out in this direction the shape of the starter head. I made a paper template and then cut that out of aluminum, assembled it in this direction on the bench, or the other way around, but put that plate on top of the other plate on the starter head, and then tacked it all up, welded it all up, put holes, axes for the solenoid and for the motor, you know, just so that you could screw everything together. I guess the motor is blind, but the solenoid bolts on in that direction. So I think you can actually see one of the 2 screws. Yeah, right there. So I relieved through that 1/4 inch registration, the half moon, and then down into the original starter head. And on this side, the holes are recessed, but that one is down in there. So I get my OEM quality starter. Whether I use that or not doesn't matter. I just keep that starter head. I get my solenoid and wiring on the top side of the motor instead of the bottom, which is beautiful, accessible, and free from the opportunities of moisture and dirt and grime. I got a little bit of stick out, but I think I've got plenty of clearance. I'm not going to be stuck out past the cylinder heads, that's for sure, you know. And I clear the pan. So I'm very, very excited with how this thing is turning out. Works really good. So now the rest of the transmission components are coming. I'll finish the rebuild on that. They should be coming in the next couple of days, actually. We had some horrible weather, so who knows. But Tuesday, Wednesday, so today's Monday, tomorrow and Wednesday is the expected delivery for those parts. Then I start building up the transmission, or actually just the pump, but just building it out to get the adapter made. That's progress as far as I'm concerned. Once the adapter's made, I can bolt up the entire assembly and begin to drop it into the frame. The guy with the suspension drafting up the suspension for me for fabrication is nearly done. He got really sick and he's feeling better now, but I'm looking at probably 6-7 weeks before I'm going to start seeing the suspension. So I'm going to keep continuing on this. I did bring, see that? That's my cherry picker. You know, everybody's got one of those. Yeah, everybody's got one of those laying around somewhere. And I wanted to leave it laying around, but because I hate having that. You only need it when you need it. Anyway, so I'll get that engine mocked up in the frame. And progress. Morning. Well, whenever you're watching this, got the flex plate, SFI rated. Don't think I'll be drag racing or making a significant amount of racing type horsepower, but you can see the holes don't line up. That's because this needs to be clocked. You can see the mark in there. I got a mark. I think it's right there on the flywheel. There you go. That's a 8-volt RB LA 340 high performance big block Mopar. They used the same bolt pattern as the Hemi. So now I've got that flex plate, and I was going to buy some crank bolts, and you know they're I don't know what the hell they were, like $20 for some grade 8 bolts. I could go, you know, 150, 160,000 psi bolt, and AARP they go up to 100 and what, 100, almost 200,000 on a half-inch. I bought some grade 8s. Just simply bought some grade 8 bolts. 150 or 160,000 psi. I can't remember specifically, but certainly meet the fundamentals of a stock, relatively stock, you know, mild performance street engine. Why the flex plates SFI certified is because that's what I could find. Anyway, what I'm doing is I'm taking the grade 8 bolt and I'm turning it down in the lathe because of my clearance. So I'm just basically turning the head down, nipping it off. I'm painting that surface. Maybe partly because of cosmetic. I want it to look good as I assemble it, knowing full well that you're not going to see it. But the second piece is that it's going to be sitting up here sandwiched between the flex plate and the torque converter. And I don't, you know, whatever, rust, a little bit of rust prevention. More than anything, when my relatives come over and friends come over and look at it, they say, wow. Anyway, so I got that going. And over the weekend here, I plan on building it out. So today is Thursday on the calendar, and I need to build that out so I can make that adapter plate. I need to get that, shim it for my spacer because I have to machine my spacer, and my intentions for shimming involve measuring washers until I can get a dimension, because I will be spacing this up when I put the adapter in. This has got to be sized for the torque converter, and it's got to register on the outside of the crank. So once I get that all done, it's going to move that slightly up, that whatever thickness that is. I don't really care because I'm referencing off of here, not a factory Mopar. So once all that buildup is in, that torque converter will be established at a height. Then I take the transmission that's over there, somewhere underneath the frame over there, and set him on, or the pump at least, set him on the torque converter. And then I measure the distance from this flange to the surface of the pump housing, because the pump housing is where the back side of the adapter plate will bolt, and this bell housing is where the front side of the adapter plate will bolt. And once I get those two imaginary planes established, that'll determine the thickness of the material I need to use and the shape. So that's where we're at, and hopefully by this weekend I'll have it modeled up in a 3D model. Measure the thickness of whatever I use for shims in there, and then I'll draft up and model the registration plate, or the adapter, if you want to call it that. And then we are ready to start final assembly. Oh, then I'll have to stick the starter in, make sure the engagement works, everything works. What I am thinking is, if I need extra depth, you can see the Dodge starter housing extends another better than 1/4 of an inch. So as this thing pushes out, if I'm too low, and right now I'm not, but my stacked flex plate and adapter might take me beyond engagement, not beyond engagement, but not enough engagement. So I can machine this down and take that equal amount and put it behind the starter drive bushing to move this up. So I do still have some room to play, but thus far everything, my distance, my gear interface, all that is good. But if I'm low, I'll be able to come back forward. I believe I've taken as much as I can off of the starter drive. I mean, I can always get more, but I don't want to thin. And I've started just basically, I'm going to sand this, but make it look pretty before I put it in. So I just put fill in the welds. I don't want to remove any more welds, but I want it to look pretty on the show side. So we are almost there. And then I just remembered, I should show you this. I just remembered, hey, if I'm going to let this hang out in the wind and this registered on the original bell housing, I know I've got probably enough material there, but why not gusset that guy? Why not just to hold that outer drive sturdy with the rest of the assembly? Now, I don't know if I need to do that or not. There's nothing that actually goes into there. You can see this just indexes forward, so I don't know that I necessarily need to do that. It's something I'm thinking about. Other thing I could do is probably even just lop that off, but I'm still thinking about it. Let's just put it that way. All right, more later. Okay, got it mocked up. Got a space. Put spacers in between the flywheel and flex plate, and then the torque converter on top of the flex plate, okay? 105 thousandths washers, measured each one to get them identical, because washers aren't identical. I bolted up the starter motor. So you can see I am in the process of grabbing a light. Get this close to there. I've got a battery charger rigged to the 35 amps. Got my solenoid wire right here, and we're gonna see if this sucker's gonna work. Well, we're gonna see. I'll be darned. And you saw the height. You saw she came all the way in. Full engagement. Today is a wonderful day. No buying a non-OEM starter. Size works. It's gonna clear the header. It's gonna clear the pan. I got my critical wiring at the top. If that motor takes a shit, let it take a shit. I'll buy an OEM Dodge starter, or a Chrysler brand starter, or a Denso, and we'll be off and flying. I am very, very, very satisfied with this. I'm beyond satisfied. I'm very, very, very ecstatic.